coffee.
Well, if no one's gonna drink this, maybe I'll just... Ugh, that's terrible. That's...
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee with Brian, the show that lasts as long as our coffee. And that means this one's going to last 30 seconds because I'm nearly done already. So, good morning to everyone out there on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, KGRA Digital Radio. Welcome to you all. It's great to see you all here. We have a wonderful panel and guests lined up for today. As usual, we're going to have a lot of fun talking about some great musical things. Particularly the fact that we are when you consider the UK and America, two countries divided by a common language, as somebody once said. I think maybe Mark Twain, I don't know. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking today about bands and artists that are legendary, beloved in the UK, but never made it over here in North America, and a few acts that kind of went the other way and did it slightly differently. And we'll probably branch off and meander into all sorts of musical conversation like we normally do. But first of all, I'd like to say a very good morning to those already in the chat on YouTube. So good morning, Penny. Good morning to the great D. Bud Martin. Hello, sir. How are you? Andy Morrow. Hey, Andy. And everyone else that's going to join us, we'll keep in touch with you. Keep your chats and comments and super chats going. That would be awesome. Thank you. Also would like to give a little shout out to Fuel Up, our sponsors. So Fuel Up for work, rest, and play. Check the links in the description below the show, and there will be some more information on Fuel Up later on. And thank you to them for continuing to sponsor Morning Coffee on KGRA Digital Radio. So good morning, everybody. How are you all?
Doing good.
Wonderful,
Great.
wonderful.
I'm doing
It's
great.
Good afternoon for me.
That's right. Mal is it's afternoon in the UK, 4 p.m. So yes, I'd like to welcome back to the show our dear friend from the Rock and Roll Rowdies, the best looking, by acclaim, popular claim, the best looking Rock and Roll Rowdy.
Absolutely.
Mr. Malcrags, how are you, sir?
I'm good. The sun's shining. It's always good when the sun shines.
Yeah, the sun ain't going to shine anymore, though, as the Walker Brothers sang. So,
Yeah, the sun ain't going to shine anymore.
yeah.
I met them on one of my very, very first trips to London about 1967, 68. And we were all staying in a bed and breakfast together.
Mm.
And their backing band, they had a backing band,
The
were
Walker
from
Brothers.
Yeah, the Walker Brothers, and then there was another few musicians that you never really seen.
Mm.
Backing band, the real backing band.
Yeah, because we're definitely going to have a chat about the Walker Brothers, an interesting act. Americans, but they went to the UK to have hits and become successful. Yeah. So thank you for joining us, Mal. I know you've got personal experience of tour managing with at least a couple of the acts we're talking about today, and that will be invaluable. But we also want your musical opinion, having worked on both sides of the pond, as to what works and what doesn't, and why some acts just inexplicably just don't click despite everything. So, yeah. So also welcome to our great friend Dustin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm trying to get rid of these hiccups, though.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Dustin, my friend, can you tell us how Keto Simple, your channel, is getting on?
It's doing well. It's doing very well. We've hit over 3,200 subscribers. We're doing really well. In the midst of a couple days into beef, butter, bacon, and eggs challenge that we're doing for at least 30 days. So we're doing good.
Yeah, that's a typical British breakfast, though, Mal. Beef, bacon, eggs, and butter, isn't it?
Well, beef sausage.
Yeah.
No
So,
baked,
but yeah,
no
thanks.
baked beans.
No baked beans. Oh, I've got to have baked beans with my British breakfasts. My English breakfast, as they call it. There's a Scottish version.
British breakfast isn't a British breakfast without baked beans.
Correct. So
Never liked them.
No, well, there's different kinds. You see, the British Heinz baked beans in Britain are very different from Heinz in US. Taste completely different.
Yeah, different. That that Boston baked bean. Yeah.
Yeah. The sweeter.
What do you
in the
have
UK.
against Boston? I'm kidding.
Nothing. I love the place. I actually went there for a holiday.
I know, me too. I've been to Boston on holiday once, believe it or not. Yeah. So it was fun. Boston, of course, the team that doesn't have a Stanley Cup second round participant. So thank you, Dustin. Courtney has joined us this morning, and I'm always so happy to have Courtney on the stream. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hi, everybody.
Hi, hello. I subscribed to your channel the other day, Courtney. Looking forward to the content that you're making.
Well, thank you very much. I'm gonna be you'll enjoy it, I think. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and unlike me, Courtney is an expert on music because she can play, so that's why we love to have her here.
Used to be an expert. Maybe might be still.
Yeah, and she knows a lot about the some of the punk and new wave stuff that I might know about, but she knows a lot more. So that's
that
good.
I do know. Yes.
So also good morning to John Daswolfen. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Good. Are you familiar with some of the acts that we've mentioned so far?
Oh yeah. And the ones I wasn't familiar with from the Rock and Roll Rowdy shows, I actually made a Rock and Roll Rowdy's playlist, and I put these bands on there so I could listen to them.
Nice. Good for you, sir. Yes, good.
Hey.
We'll definitely want to get your opinion then. And also, good morning to Martin. How are you, sir? Quiet. That's how he is.
Muted. It's not which is not the same. Oh no, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Glad to
Very
hear.
happy to be with you today.
We do like our show manager to be quiet because that way we know we're not doing anything wrong. So, indeed, well, welcome to you all. Welcome to everybody out there in the chat and out there on KGRA. So it's been a fascinating thing for me over the years to think of certain acts that I absolutely love and some that I don't love, but are very popular, and why or why not they may not have made it in the US, but whereas they're beloved in the UK. And the really kind of bands I'm thinking about are ones that acts are ones that have lasted for decades, not your one-hit wonders, because you're always going to get a one-hit wonder in the US or the UK that doesn't translate. It's going to happen all the time. And bands that come and go within a year, so be it. But just generally speaking, I just wondered, do you guys think is there a difference in taste? I'm thinking between the US and the UK. Are there things that just don't fly in your experience from one side or the other? I don't know how you feel, Mal.
Yeah. Sometimes it just takes a lot of translating. you know, like hip hop and stuff like that was catching on in America long before it did in England. But now it's, you know, that type of rap, hip hop, all of that kind of genre of music is very much there in England, where we were probably a decade behind. And I think that's what it is. It's just playing catch up either side of the Atlantic. Sometimes it catches, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Courtney, you know a lot of bands. You know, you've got a great range in music, stuff that you listen to. What's your feeling, especially as you know a lot of the British stuff, like new wave stuff, particularly? How do you think there's just too much of a bridge to cross?
Well, if I were to talk about, the punk rock or that scene or whatnot, the late '70s scene with that type of music, I would say that British punk had just a very different attitude than American punk did. That's the main difference to me. And some of the sounds back in the day, when it was a little more separated. Now you can't really tell. Everyone's kind of doing everything now, but the attitude is definitely a lot different. I feel like they both were political in some ways, but American punk tended to be a lot more political in the beginning, in the start of their kind of scene. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that seem to be universal. I mean, in terms of belovedness, once the British invasion caught fire in America, everybody loved those British bands. Soul and Motown was hugely popular in Britain alongside America. There was never a divide there, I don't think. Certain other things have been universal, but other things have just stayed in pretty much their lane. And I'm wondering if it is occasionally, you mentioned it, Mal, is it really a language thing sometimes? Like certain bands, not in the music, but just speaking, maybe just don't come across as that well, and people go, what the hell was he saying? Don't get that.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
Yeah, in the early days, I think what from when I started, American bands, there weren't a lot of them in England that were breaking in England. It was still more the Motown stuff, and people loved that in England. So when the new wave people like Velvet Underground, Starship, not Jefferson Airplane, I should say back then, came across, people get come see, come saw on it,
Yeah.
especially things like, Lou Reed, Velvet Underground, they weren't too keen on it. It was still very cult, and it probably still is today.
Yeah.
Some things are cult hits. I mean, Courtney, you'd probably have some opinion on that. Things are cult hits, but not commercial hits. I know that certain of the British new wave and post new wave bands were hugely influential in certain areas, particularly the college circuit, but didn't sell a lot of records.
Exactly. The people that were into that type or genre of music that really did a deep dive into it know them, but not necessarily everyone, because they didn't have their big hit songs necessarily.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, Mal, the Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, because, again, hugely influential in the UK, but not big record sellers, not until Lou Reed had a late hit with Perfect Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were not, a certain cognoscenti, as you would call them, would be devoted to them, and your David Bowies and so on.
I had a good friend that just raved about Lou Reed. And I remember my first American tour, I was working with Robert Palmer and Elkie Brooks, and we played at the Tower Theatre, and we were opening for Velvet Underground.
Wow.
And I told my friend David, he was just like, he could not believe, he didn't believe me. He didn't believe me. He was saying, no, you've never.
Absolutely sick. I bet he was sick, yeah.
I just can't believe those bands played at the Tower Theatre.
Yeah.
It's a tiny place.
For the Velvet Underground, it was almost a local gig. It was just down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into specific acts that I wanted to talk about, Mal, having set up tours and been on tours on both sides of the Atlantic, Is there a difference in the way live music is like different PA settings, different sound settings? Is there actually a quantitative difference in sound that the audience is like?
Back in my early days, absolutely. We were again 10 years behind what was happening in the US on equipment wise and in the production wise. We were way behind America. So I couldn't believe it when I first went there and seen, we were using 12 channel mixing discs, and the first one I seen in America was a 32 channel. We had 12, 2 mics on the drums and
yeah. But I've often heard people say, and maybe Dustin or John would have an opinion on this, or maybe John particularly recently, having listened to some of the Rowdies bands, is there a production difference that people like? Is there a sound that people like to hear in America that they didn't in Britain? I think there is a difference in the way records were produced, but that's just me.
I don't know. I mean, because if you think about some of the biggest bands in history, a lot of them were all recorded at Abbey Road. So, I mean, or like the biggest records in history were recorded at Abbey Road. So you would think that there would be a difference there, but.
Yeah, one of the things I know is that in the early days in the 60s, British record companies did not like to produce records with a lot of bass on them. They liked no bottom end.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and of course that's not good for you, Courtney.
Well, but Motown is bass driven, really. So that's a huge thing.
So I think that's a factor. There is a different sound that ears were attuned to for certain bands, and also other bands, maybe the British bands, and I don't mean the British tour management or stage management. I mean the bands themselves just did not present themselves as professionally as they maybe could have. And Americans liked a slick act.
We definitely did. And I could be controversial here and say the Americans were a little contrived sometimes. They that works, we'll put that in. Ooh, that works, we'll put that in.
Right. Slicker.
I think slicker. American bands like more of a. Sorry, go ahead.
And formula, and that, for me, it became a bit of a formula with some of the acts, especially, that arena sound, that they went for.
Yeah, there's definitely been differences, I think, in approach. But John, you were about to, you heard something.
I think American audiences prefer the more manufactured sound.
Yeah, I think that's possibly true. Although, again, to go to the Abbey Road thing, I mean, if you look at the records that eventually were produced there, they set a standard for production, George Martin and Abbey Road. So, but then again, I think there's a template, and I think I would have said as a Brit, a lot of the I'm thinking of the 70s and 80s, a lot of American bands had a template, like the hair metal bands or the American version of prog rock or FM friendly radio rock, just kind of stamped those out.
Yeah.
And I think that they had what we would call a produced sound, whereas some of the British bands like the Quo were a bit more like, lay down the track and rough and ready and throw it out there. They made
they were I think the British acts were more based on the live sound than the sound for radio. We had about 3 radio stations that they would get played on, where there's 3 in every town in the North America. They just didn't gear it for the radio sound in the early days.
That's another good point, though, because another reason that people state that certain British acts didn't make it is, well, America's a big place. It still had huge regional differences back in the day. They had so much of their own stuff. What do we need another British band for? Yeah, you had the British invasion, but after that, they could pick and choose. And sometimes we've got our own stuff. We've got our own 12-bar boogie bands. We don't need a British one.
Well, and if I may add, there were a lot of different sounds from the different record companies. Also, you had, the sounds of the South and stuff like that. So, we had a whole a lot bigger, a more diverse kind of types of sounds. So.
Sure. We're getting a little bit of an echo from somewhere, and I'm not quite sure it's where it's from, but we'll experiment as we go to see if we can identify that. I forgot to say, by the way,
Yeah,
Mal, sorry, Martin, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. It's Mike. Mal's mic. I cannot English today.
All right.
Oh
Are
my
you on your
goodness.
phone, Mal, or yeah, your Mal's on his phone.
It's on an iPad,
All
it's on a
right.
pad.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback, but we'll just make sure we give you time to that you don't lag. So we'll give you space to speak. But while we're doing that, I forgot to say you are not only the best looking Rowdy, but you certainly had other attractions, as we know.
Carried socks in his shorts.
Legs, talking about my legs.
Look at those legs. I think
Legs
Granny's
are
got the better
nice.
legs. You've got the better package, but he's got the better legs. You see, the American girls would have gone wild over that. Never mind the band. That's so.
By the way, Brian, we have a super sticker from
Oh, we
Dennis
do.
Munchausen.
Sorry. Yes. Thanks for telling me. Yeah. We have a super sticker from our wonderful, wonderful friend Darius Munchausen. Hey, brother, how are you? And it's a box of popcorn. So thank you, Darius. I think I may have somewhere in this voluminous list of stuff something I can play you.
You have our gratitude.
So thanks, Darius, for being here, buddy, and thank you everybody in the chat. You can see you all there. Slasher Fred is here. Davina, our great friend Davina. I think there's a devoted fan base in the US, and I'll forget about Canada, even though I live there. They were slightly different again. Devoted fan base in America for certain British bands, and vice versa. There are certain American bands that didn't catch on, but they have their devoted fans, like the Velvet Underground we spoke about earlier. So there's always going to be a hardcore, and that's great because they keep that music promoted and alive. So I'm going to go back, way back, and talk about some specific acts, if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
And I wanted to start with the granddaddy or grandmother, as some people may say, the Queen Mother of Rock, Cliff Richard. So Sir Cliff Richard, as we should call him, it's probably Dame Cliff Richard these days, but he's like the Queen Mother. He's been around for so long. The original British rock and roller, and his first hit in what, 57, 56, 57? Still touring. Sorry, Mal?
Way before my time.
Oh yeah, me too. It's still touring and performing today in his 80s. And he's got some incredible career stats. 67 UK top 10 hits, more than any other artist except Elvis and the Beatles. 14 UK number one hit singles. Again, only behind Elvis and the Beatles. 7 UK number one albums. The only UK artist to have a number one single in 5 consecutive decades, the 50s to the 90s. 129 chart singles, 440 weeks. The stats all there are incredible. 44 charting albums, 958 weeks in the album chart. Hugely popular in the UK. Beloved. I mean, it's not my kind of music, a lot of what he does, because he's very pop. But third biggest selling artist in Germany. In America, not so much. Cliff has struggled to ever have a big hit in America. He did have a hit with a song called Devil Woman, which made number 6 in the 70s. And then We Don't Talk Anymore made number 7. But other than that, it's been minor hits. And also his backing band, The Shadows, huge British instrumental band, dozens of British hit singles in their own right, other than working with Cliff. Again, beloved, and yet virtually a blip, like just not even a blip in the US. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit, because Cliff, funnily enough, Cliff is one of these guys who, I say, oh, Cliff Richard, no, not Cliff again, geez, he's like the grandmother, as I say, of British pop. Christmas hits. There's a lot of Christmas hits. And yet, I looked in my record collection and I've got like 4 albums of Cliff Richard songs. It's just the weirdest thing. I've even got his debut album from 1957 when it was Cliff Richard and the Drifters as opposed to Cliff and the Shadows. And it had, the original British rock and roll hit "Move It" on it. So I've actually got. I forgot I had a copy of this. Albeit I didn't buy it at the time, naturally, because I wasn't even born. But
And you're broadcasting this.
Yes, I am. So I'm a hostage to fortune now because my metal cred has just been blown. But yeah, D-Bud Martin, the video for "We Don't Talk Anymore" was shown in the first hour of MTV. So he did have a little bit of US traction, but never, like if I say Cliff Richard, I'm sure John, Dustin, Courtney, who is he? And yet massively successful and beloved in the UK. And I'm going to play a little clip of the very first hit song that he and the Shadows had, first ever real British rock and roll record. I'll go back to the start.
Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and groove it. Shake a baby, shake a honey.
So from then on, it was uphill all the way for Cliff, hit after hit. And a great record.
I see if you play this for me, I would never have thought he was from the UK. It didn't sound like a UK artist to me.
Well,
he also covered a lot of Elvis, I believe.
Well, yes, and they all did. But so he did a lot of Elvis, but he did have that was an original number, and the Shadows in the background there. The guy with the glasses is Hank Marvin, who had the first, theoretically, allegedly, the first ever Fender Stratocaster in the UK, because he was modeling himself in Buddy Holly. But yeah, Cliff was absolutely huge in the UK for decades. Still is, still amazingly touring and recording it in his 80s. They talk about the
sells out constantly.
Yeah,
he sells out in advance.
Yeah, and he went on to have. Oops, sorry, wrong one. I'm trying to find the right layout here. There we go. That's a better layout. I mean, he was these guys. So now another bit of trivia is Bruce Welch, the other guitar player, was married to Olivia Newton-John for many years. So make of that what you will. But great, cool, very, very cool rock and roll band back in the day. But he soon moved into mainstream pop. But just hit after hit after hit for decades. Now, Apache is the one Shadows song that people may know in the US because it was sampled by all the hip hop acts back in the 80s. So it was a big, fairly well known instrumental hit, even in the US. But other than that, nothing. So he became this clean cut kind of pop icon. Have you ever encountered him, Mal, in person?
Just briefly, we done a show, one of these Nordoff Robins, which is a big charity event, and there was, I think, oh god, I was with Pink Floyd, but Paul McCartney were on the bill as well. Cliff was on the bill. Yeah. It's all these huge English, or worldwide artists, and they raise a lot of money for charity, and that was at Nebworth. We had an audience of like 150,000 or something.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult to put over just how popular this guy is in the UK to this day. Staple of television and made movies, but I guess America had Elvis. What did they need Cliff for?
Yeah, exactly. He wants. In the early days, even everybody in England said the same thing. Yeah. He's just copying Elvis. He's just another Elvis, and you don't need two of them. you've got one unique one, Elvis.
Yeah, that's right. Why do you need another one? Which I mean, and like all these guys, he pretty quickly got away from the straightforward rock and roll and went into pop. Here he is with Billy Graham. He became a born again Christian in the
I was
60s.
just about to say that he got on this, on the Christian bandwagon.
Yeah.
Early days, and he's
Yeah.
still there with that. And if you go on tour with him, you swear us, take the Lord's name in vain, and you're off the tour.
Yeah, he's a pretty hardcore with that, which is why when he had a hit with Devil Woman, he actually struggled with it because he wasn't sure he should be recording that song, but he did it and it was a huge hit. So, and it is one of his better songs. He had a run of quite good albums in the 70s where he was covering stuff by Cat Stevens and people like that, and some quite good rock and roll stuff. But never hip. He's the most unhip artist in history, and yet here I find myself with like 2 or 3 of his albums in my collection, which is weird. Not that I'm hip, but he made a bunch of movies as well. Summer Holiday.
That one never. Can I just point out something? David Kossoff.
Paul Kossoff's father.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
what a
Paul
great
Kossoff
guitar player.
Of Free. If anyone knows the band Free, All Right Now. His son, David Kossoff's, Paul Kossoff, a guitarist's father. He was an actor. Great, good catch, Mal. Good catch. So yeah, he had a bunch of these movies, and George Harrison once, just before the Beatles had done Ed Sullivan, he'd actually gone to America on a holiday, and he said he saw Summer Holiday third on the bill in an American cinema. So it's like third in a double feature. Yeah, because only the Brits could make a film about going on holiday in a bus.
In a double-decker bus.
Yeah. But yeah, in the 70s, had a bunch of big hits. A couple were mentioned, Devil Woman, We Don't Talk Anymore. It became more of a kind of, I always saw more like a sort of David Cassidy-ish type act by then. But hard-working guy. Tons of, got known for Christmas records, did a lot of Christmas records. So like, just every year, when's Cliff's #1 Christmas record coming out, but yet never really, nobody in America could probably name the guy, or hardly anybody. But that's,
he done a duet with Van Morrison.
He did. Because Whenever God Shines His Light, I think it was called.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So he did. He absolutely worked with Van Morrison. He's worked with a lot of people. Him and the Shadows generally, they had a lot of reunions. I mean, they're a bit past that now, but just another quick snippet, if you don't mind me. This is the Shadows Apache, which Courtney, have any of you guys heard of this stuff?
Well, I've heard Apache, and I've heard a couple of Cliff Richard's hits, but just he's not like something that's that I know right off the bat.
Yeah, and of course the British invasion kind of killed acts like Cliff to a certain extent. He did reinvent himself as a pop singer, but the Beatles just killed that stuff. It's tone dead, unfortunately.
I would not know him music-wise other than what you played, which is very interesting to me. When you said his name, but when you showed Summer Holiday, I'm into a lot of those little kind of beach party movies from America. I've seen a couple of his movies. So that's funny.
He did
musicals.
Yeah, he did The Young Ones, Summer Holiday. I'm trying to think of some more. I've got another one. There's another great clip I've got of him. Oh no, here's Summer Holiday. Hang on. Just a few seconds of this before we get.
We're all going on a summer holiday.
So as you say, British people go on holidays in buses. But yeah, this was probably the Beatles were out by now, so he was middle of the road was the way forward for these guys. but they're fun. It's fun movies. But I actually wanted to show one more thing about the Shadows. I have this album in my collection from, I think it's from like 1967. This is a Shadows album called Shades of Rock. Now look at that cover. Isn't that cover awesome?
That is
Late
very
70s
cool.
punk.
That is cool.
Isn't that the coolest cover ever? I think it's 1967. It's got, well, it might be later. It's got Proud Mary on it as one of the covers they do.
Nice.
Wow.
I love this cover. And that was the whole mods and rockers thing.
Yeah.
I don't think the mod stuff really ever caught on in the US, like the Who did, but the mods thing. I don't know if you.
I can't think
thing
of
was
that
late.
transparent cover, apart from the. Yeah, but that
Yeah, a lot
that,
of those mod bands didn't really make it. The Small Faces we're going to talk about a little bit, but Courtney, do you? I mean, the mod thing, the sharp dressing and the whatever. I guess they took it from America with the soul and Motown thing, kind of pushed it back again. Or
See,
tried to.
I wasn't alive back in that day, so I don't know much about the mod thing in America, to be honest. But until the like 90s, it became a big thing. People were bringing back that style with the Vespas and stuff like that. A lot of different cultures like
Yeah,
they stem from punk.
indeed. So yeah, the mod rockers thing was kind of almost a British sideshow. Like Americans would be like, what's all that
Wasn't there
about?
like a TV show, like the Mod Squad TV show or something like that back in the day?
Well, I mean,
if you want to know about the mod and rockers, watch Quadrophenia, the movie.
Quadrophenia. I was just gonna say that.
yeah,
That's a
watch
great movie.
Quadrophenia. Yeah, did you ever get
Yeah.
caught up in that stuff, Mal? In your pre roadie days in Hartlepool, was there a
Yeah,
mod rocker
yeah.
thing?
I leaned more to the mod than the rocker, you know, and yeah, it was.
What fights?
It was a violent time. You know, there was a lot of violence between the mods and the rockers because of the different genres of music. You know, I can't even think what rock music they were listening to, but we were
Well, the
listening
rockers
to
were rock and roll, like old school rock and roll with the Teddy Boy
Yeah,
look or the
really-
leathers.
Jerry Lee Lewis and you know, Chuck Berry. That rock type of rock and roll.
Yeah, the movie That'll Be the Day, the David Essex thing, talks a lot
Yeah.
about that as well, with Keith Moon and Dave Edmunds and others that are in that. They're the Rods and Rockers fighting. It's another great British rock and roll movie. That'll Be the Day. But yeah, Cliff never really had a couple of hits, but given his UK career, didn't really make it. But another band I wanted to mention were The Move. So The Move with Roy Wood and then later Jeff Lynne. Again, had a lot of British success. Virtually nothing in America. I think a minor hit for the song Do Ya, which Jeff Lynne re-recorded with ELO later.
They got kind of psychedelic, right? Weren't they a psychedelic band?
Yeah, kind of. They were proto-psychedelic rock metal, bit of rock and roll.
Bit mod, you know.
Yeah, they had a bit of everything. But Roy Wood. No, go
I
ahead.
put them into that garage kind of psychedelic garage kind of genre.
Yeah, I mean, 9 top 20 hits in the UK in the late 60s, early 70s, 2 #1 singles, Blackberry Wayflower in the Rain, multiple top 40 albums, top 10 albums, 1 minor hit in the US, which was late on in their career with Do Ya. And then, of course, they beat Jeff Lynne from ELO, which were massive. So he eventually found the formula. So yeah, is that a band any of you guys are familiar with, and the other than Courtney?
ELO.
Yeah, ELO obviously became huge, but Jeff Lynne didn't start out in the movie; he joined them later. But there he is with slightly shorter beard. They're here.
No, I was a big fan of theirs back in the day. Back then, you know, you had a guitar player called Ace Kefford.
Oh,
God,
God,
was really good.
Yeah, the original Move lineup with Ace Kefford and Trevor Bolder. Was it not Trevor?
Yeah.
Trevor. Great thumping rock band.
Yeah.
Did you did you ever encounter those guys? So they were kind of done by 72.
Just as in the audience, I went to see them play live a couple of times. Fantastic band.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to try and play a little clip of them just to give everyone a taste of what they're like. Never made it in the US. Unlike other bands of that time. Well, this is it. So when they were really hitting big in Britain, Pink Floyd were too, the original Pink Floyd lineup. Other bands that did eventually translate, but maybe it was just too British. I don't know. So just have a tiny little
See the people all in line. What's making them look at me?
So this is the pre-Jeff Lynne lineup, but great band. I don't think they ever played much in America because of legal difficulties, if I could put it that way. Very thumping, bass-driven sound as well, which I absolutely love.
I don't know why that didn't catch on.
I don't know. Their hits, their hit singles in Britain, like that one, I Can Hear the Grass Grow, Blackberry Way, Flowers in the Rain, Fire Brigade, are really catchy pop rock hits. Did nothing in America. Which, and as they didn't tour until maybe 69 in the US, so even though they started in 66, because they had a little bit of legal difficulty in the UK. Got sued by the Prime Minister, Harold Wilson. Which you may remember.
I think some of these bands didn't get a fair shake in the United States because, like, not so much like the audiences didn't like it. The audiences didn't get a chance to hear it.
Possibly, because as I say, they didn't tour or even play any gigs. And I think in the end, they didn't even tour in the US. They played like 2 gigs at Winterland or something. And they had difficulty traveling because they did all these legal difficulties in the UK, getting sued by the Prime Minister for claiming he slept with his secretary, which he probably did. Allegedly. You remember that, Mal, don't you? That big storm at the time.
Yeah. I mean, and they had a manager that would break the law everywhere,
Yeah, they were legendary for their outlaw tactics, PR tactics. But yeah, just super musical. But Roy Wood is a fantastic songwriter. Went on to form Wizard after forming ELO and then leaving it with Jeff Lynne. Went to form Wizard again, not a big band in America, but and then bands like Cheap Trick, I adore them and cover a lot of their tracks. Just great band. I think they've got a little clip here. I'll play of them with Jeff Lynne, just so you can get a little touch of that. Here, indulging their proto rock and roll stuff.
Gotta see where Prince got his
Sorry,
style from. Let's see, get where Prince got his style from.
Well, there is a touch of that. It's weird that you mentioned that, yeah. But Roy Wood playing the sax there at the back. That's what this look he took into his band Wizard, who were after the move, and did all just straightforward horn-based rock and roll stuff. And Cheap Trick, of course, famously covered this on the Budokan album. But yeah, great little band. Never did a thing in the US. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
That's the same person who was in a band called the Idle Race?
Yes, Jeff Lynne was his original Birmingham band were the Idle Race. Another great little band who never made it in Britain either, of course. But
okay.
So Jeff Lynne was Idle Race, then The Move, and then ELO. And he's always been a fantastic songwriter. So eventually he got the formula right. So ELO were huge, you know. But yeah, I've always felt the Move should really have been a bigger band than they were. It's interesting you saw them live, Mal, because I'd love to go back and see them live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great. I was
ferocious.
a big Move fan. You know, they were,
Yeah.
great live band.
The live recordings I've got from their anthology albums are ferocious. They're proto metal, hard rock, extended guitar solo workouts, stuff that you never not associate with Roy Wood. But you know, I think it's Roy Wood, the guitar player. He absolutely tore the shit out of it live. But yeah, great little band. Alas, never big in America. So.
Well, that's going on my list. I want to hear those proto metal albums.
Well, I'll recommend a few tracks to you, but I would recommend anyone to go out and find I think there's a 4-disc anthology on the Move, which I've got, and it's got their live appearances in the US that they did, and there's some of their album tracks that they play on their later albums are just, they move more from the psychedelic into the proto metal side, and they're just an awesome band. Can't praise them highly enough. But again, not a thing. They were released. All these songs were released in America, died, and yet some of them were pop hits, that jangly guitar pop hits that I thought would have been ideal for the States. But there's that thing; it just doesn't catch fire. You know, maybe they had their own stuff. They didn't need it. So.
Yeah, I think it was Flowers in the Rain. That was the first track ever played on Radio 2 when that station started up, BBC Radio 2.
Yeah, when Britain started its first ever pop radio station, and they were right in at the beginning in 1967. Instead of 1957, because before then you'd hear like 2 hours of pop music a day and the rest would be all light music, as they call it. So they started a pop station, and the first record it was the second record played. The first one, I'm being pedantic, the first one was Van der Graaf Generator's Theme 1.
Oh, well, I was about to say that, Brian. You know, I'm always pedantic about it as well, but it wasn't. That was played every morning.
That's right.
Theme 1 opened up the radio station every morning at about 6 a.m.
That's right.
But the first actual disc that was played
was Flowers in the Rain. Yeah.
Flowers in the Rain. But to be pedantic, I always argued, no, it was Van der Graaf Generator, Theme 1.
Right. I'm with you, because that was the first music actually played. Yeah.
Which was in Italy.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you were involved heavily with that band, and that one was produced by George Martin, written and produced by George Martin, I think, Theme 1. But we did play it on one of the shows that you were on with us. But this is Flowers in the Rain, just briefly.
Woke up one morning half asleep with all my blankets in a heap and yellow roses scattered all around. The time was still approaching, for I couldn't stand it anymore. So Mary goes upon my eider down. I'm just sitting watching flowers in the rain, feel the power of the rain making the garden grow.
Just beautifully catchy psychedelic based pop, you know.
And that 12-string sound, you know, that he had going then. That was totally, you know.
Yeah, I've never understood how that song in particular was never a hit in America. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Such is life.
American audiences are fickle, is what it is.
Fickle.
I guess it would have taken somebody in the US to pick them up and promote them hard, like to really carry them, like a DJ or a TV show or something. But it never happened, unfortunately. You know. But the stuff's still out there to listen to, and Roy Wood's still performing. Jeff Lynne's obviously still performing. Did you ever do anything with ELO, Mal, as well, or any bills with them?
And I worked for a band called Steve Hillage, who were on Virgin Records, mid-70s, I think it was. And we'd done the first ELO tour, you know, when they had the spaceship.
Oh, wow.
we were the support act on that for a lot of the shows.
So you didn't have to worry about the spaceship?
No, nothing to do with me. I'm glad to say, because they did have some hiccups with that, you know.
Yeah, that's that is quite interesting, because the that must have been a logistical nightmare on that spaceship.
Yeah. I mean, it would be far easier to do now than it was then.
Yeah, I'll bet. So there's another. We've probably got about Martin, about 5 minutes to the top of the hour. 5-7 minutes.
Yeah, we still have 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I wanted to move on to an act we've just for a couple of minutes we've talked about, which was actually Americans that moved to Britain to make it. There's a handful of those, and we're going to talk about a couple later on in the show. But right now, one we've mentioned already is the Walker brothers, who were 3 American guys. They weren't brothers. They just adopted the name the Walker brothers and all called themselves Scott, Gary, and John Walker, but they weren't really brothers. And they were American guys that moved to Britain and had a number of hits, and were actually really popular in the late 60s, early 70s in Britain. This song is the only one that had any kind of impact in America, even though they were American guys. The sun ain't going to shine anymore. But I recall Mrs. Rockfan particularly talking about when she was a teenager in the late 60s, these guys were all over British magazines and all over British TV. Not that she's British, but they used to get them in Canada, the British stuff. And she'd say, and then she'd go down to America, no one had heard of them. So, I mean, you were talking about them earlier, Mal, that they were on various package tours.
Yeah, I think they actually done a tour with the Stones back in the day. You know, there was support act, and I think Ike and Tina Turner, the Walker brothers, the Stones, very mixed. You get very mixed musical acts on those tours back in the day.
Well, they toured with Jimi Hendrix in the UK once.
Well, there you go. Yeah, actually, I might have seen. I only seen Hendrix perform once, and that was they had a band called Heir Apparent open for them.
Yeah, wasn't that was Gary Moore in that? No, he was Skid Row.
Yeah, a guy called Henry McCulloch.
Yeah, who was in the Wings.
Yeah, he was in Wings, and he was in Joe Cockerby prior to Wings.
That's right. Yeah. Heir Apparent.
Doing that great guitar intro for Little Help from My Friends, Henry McCulloch.
Yeah, because he played with Joe Cocker and Woodstock. Was it Woodstock and all of that stuff? He did all the festivals. Yeah. The Heir Apparent were EIRE, of course, the Irish Heir, not AIR, not AIR. But
I think the Walker brothers may have been on that bill as well, and ELP, but it was prior to ELP. I don't think they were called ELP.
The Nice, was it the Nice?
Nice, yeah. And Jimmy Hendrix, strange bill.
Just amazed by those bills they had, package bills they had in those days. But so the Walker brothers, who were really kind of crooners in a sense, with a sort of Phil Spector-ish Righteous Brothers thing going on, there they are supporting Jimi Hendrix, who is the complete opposite.
Very, very well thought of, the singer. So still today, Scott Walker is regarded as a great singer in England.
Yeah, so just briefly, because we may have a little bit of time, like 30 seconds, Martin, I wanted to just play a tiny bit of one of their hits that wasn't a hit in America, Make It Easy on Yourself. So let's have a quick peek.
Latest from the Walker Brothers, written by Bacharach and David, Make It Easy on Yourself.
So very hard to do.
He has a beautiful voice. Yeah, gorgeous voice, Scott Walker. Died, I think, a couple of years ago now. Not that long. I think they're all maybe passed away now.
I'm surprised this wasn't a hit.
It's so... Yeah, it surprises me. It's very Phil Spector, very Righteous Brothers. It's a Burt Bacharach song, but...
You can tell.
You can, and then they had a huge hit in the 70s with a song called No Regrets, which later on, Mid-Year had a hit with Scottish singer. But the Walker Brothers... So go ahead, Mal.
No, I just, Mid-Year.
Mid-Year, yeah. The Walker Brothers were hugely popular with the girls. So, yeah, never made it in America. Good-looking American guys never made it in America. So. Anywho, Martine, are we heading to the top?
I would say so. Bill, take us away.
All right.
Hi guys, this is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm going to take it for the energy. I'm going to take it for the play. I'm going to take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a Feel the Difference money-back guarantee. Fuel Up for life.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived. Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
Welcome back indeed. Thank you everybody for being here with us out there on YouTube, Rumble, KGRA Digital Broadcasting. We appreciate it very much. We're here talking about British acts that never made it in America with our special guest, rock and roll rowdy Mal Craggs. Peace out, man. So we're going to get to some meat and potatoes now, as they say, with a couple of bands that you've worked with that I adore and have beaten their head against a brick wall, probably literally headbangers, trying to make it in the US. And the first of those is the mighty Status Quo, who have been going since 1966 and are still going in some form today. It's only one original member left in the band, Francis Rossi. But Status Quo formed way back in 62, and they had a couple of different names. But they have had, this to reel off their British stats, 33 studio albums, 10 live albums, hundreds of singles, 60 chart hits in the UK, 22 top 10 hits, and 3 number 1 singles. One of the most successful British bands in chart history, 118 million records sold worldwide. However, only one ever hit in the US in 1966 with Pictures of Matchstick Men. And it's nothing like the rest of their output from the 70s onward.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. one hit in '66, and yet here's this band that I'm talking about the Quo again, Darius, because I absolutely adore the Quo. Here is a picture you sent me earlier, Mal.
Yeah, that was just about to get production rehearsals. Before I can't remember what tour that was.
So
probably Rock Over the World.
Yeah, I suspect this is around about 1978, 77, 78, Rockin' All Over the World tour. Where are you in here?
On my right, second in. No,
that side. Oh, that's you.
That's
I
it.
see you.
That's
I recognize
right.
you. That's you right there, where the mouse
And
is.
my wife's in that picture somewhere as well. My future ex-wife.
Future ex-wife. Okay.
No,
they're all future ex-wives.
We met through via Status Quo in Australia, and we're still married today. She worked for them for a long time.
Yeah, and they started in the 60s as a bit of a sort of psychedelic pop band, and then that, after the early couple of hits they had, fell away, and they reinvented themselves as a denim-clad 12-bar hard rock boogie band. And this is a result, as you can see, they became enormously successful, beloved live act. I mean, I've seen them a few times back in the day. It's just always such fun. And uncompromising 12-bar boogie. But this is what they looked like in the 60s.
Yeah, they were just the best at what they did. There was other bands around doing a similar, boogie type thing, but they were just the best.
They were. They absolutely nailed it. And the long hair, the denim-clad look, and the heads down, no-nonsense, mindless boogie. They were just adored. They became like the queen mother of rock bands. Like they've been around forever and beloved in the UK.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if this picture is why they didn't become popular in America.
Those frilly shirts. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think they were moving from, they were doing holiday parks and stuff like that is where they started out.
Yeah, Butlins.
And Butlins, yeah. And that cabaret type performance. And that's where they moved from.
Yeah.
And that, they obviously learned their trade in that while they were doing that.
They did. And I think they had like 2 hits in the UK, and one of those was the hit that was their only hit in America, which was Pictures of Matchstick Men, and I actually have a greeny black and white clip of that. Hang on, here we go. So,
which I've already got stuck in my head now.
Yeah, this was 1966. It sticks in your head, doesn't it? Now, the guy playing that riff, Francis Rossi, is the only remaining original member.
It's such
and he's touring right.
Yeah, he's touring right now in a solo speaking acoustic type thing, yeah. But yeah, this is full-on psychedelia. So the only one that was ever a hit in America was this one. So they're the sort of band you would see as a Nuggets type thing now in America, like one hit wonder, garage psychedelia. Yet they had this entire career after this.
You would swear that someone's playing the mouth harp.
You would, yeah. There's a thing going on, yeah. And then there's the phased guitar playing and whatever.
And I think that's the last time you would ever see Francis Rossi playing the Les Paul. He just switched to Telecasters from then on.
Full-on tellies, yeah.
Yeah, always Telecaster from then on in.
Yeah, so they took off reinvented themselves. 1970 suddenly reappeared after being consigned to the dustbin as this denim-clad boogie band, and albums like Pile Driver. That's a classic Status Quo look.
Yeah.
A look I could never achieve.
I think it's been well copied since then.
It has, yeah. Now, they actually did a whole series of adverts. I'm getting quite a lot of feedback here. A whole series of adverts in the 1970s for, I think it was Lee Jeans, maybe?
Yeah.
Or Wrangler, one of these.
Levi's, Wrangler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because they had this denim-clad look, and apparently they never got paid for this. They just had as much denim as they could wear.
Somebody got paid for it.
Somebody did, they didn't.
Somebody got paid for it.
But live, a ferocious live band, you know, full-on performance every night, thumping rock music.
Yeah.
Beloved band. And just
I used
hit
to make money selling my jeans to Rick Parfitt, the guy in the middle there, because I was a roadie back in the day, and humping equipment around would get your jeans worn out pretty quick. And that's the look they wanted. They couldn't get that look. You know, you couldn't buy stonewashed and all of that business back then. So we loved that natural fade and wear. And I used to sell them to Rick, my jeans, for twice the price of what I paid for them.
Yeah, you actually had to wear things in those days to get the worn look.
Yeah,
Well, if you remember from the movie Quadrophenia, the opposite, wearing the jeans in the bathtub to make them fit right.
Oh, right, yeah. But did you sell them the shorts as well, though?
Yeah, well, you know.
And this is the album that you were touring with them on Rockin' All Over the World, a massive hit album in the entire world except America, and yet it's the most American-sounding album they ever made.
We went all over the world on that except America. We went to Japan, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe.
It is the weirdest. Like, and even like this hit, "Rockin' All Over the World," it's a John Fogerty song.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
you can't get more American than that. So
yeah, Denim and John Fogerty, you know, they kind of go together as well.
Yeah, and of course the opened Live Aid, which you were, as we discussed on the last show on my channel, you were an integral part of with Phil Collins. So let's have a quick look at them opening Live Aid.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Here we go. Waterborne, and we're hitting the road. Here we go. Rocking all over the world. Go on,
Just the absolute quintessential good time band, you know. He's played the Rick plays that green telly to this day, yeah. Absolutely adore them. But yeah, never made it in America. I guess they tried. I mean, they must have toured multiple times.
Yeah, they didn't do that much touring of America. And then I think Francis just gave up on it. You know, they weren't getting anywhere. And I think they drew a line and said, no, we won't waste our time and energy on that. When they were being so well received in the rest of the world, they kind of took that attitude. Do we need America? America doesn't seem to want us. Do we need America? Yeah.
Yeah, funny because there were plenty of boogie bands in America. Humble Pie, which I guess was British artists anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it wasn't like that kind of music wasn't popular. It just, for whatever reason, maybe it was just too British. I don't know, whatever that means. And here they are on the reunion.
Kind of like
before,
Vegemite.
Like Vegemite. So this is the Frantic Four reunion when the original band split up quite a while ago, and only Francis and Rick continued, but they got back together with the other two guys, John Coughlin, the drummer, and Alan Lancaster, the bass player, for a final kind of original foursome tour. And unfortunately, of course, now Alan Lancaster and Rick Parfitt are dead now, unfortunately. So really, it's all...
Yeah. At that reunion, Alan was very sick at the time.
He was. Yeah. They did it for him, really. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, 12 Gold Bars, the quintessential collection of their hits. Because it's all 12-bar blues. They don't need a fourth chord. Status Quo never needed a fourth chord. So,
Never needed one.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, John, you've been listening to some of their stuff. What do you think? Do you think there's a reason they didn't make it?
If there is, I can't figure it out because some of their stuff's really, really good.
Yeah, I guess maybe one day there'll be some kind of reassessment, and maybe they'll.
Maybe it was too simple. I don't know. Maybe it was too simple, too easy. 3 chords.
Well, you have to remember, I guess, that at that point in time, progressive rock was huge.
Yeah.
And these guys were completely the opposite direction. And they weren't all the heavy. They weren't the heavy metal way. Although heavy metal fans liked the Quo too, but they didn't go completely all that way. But there was no. They didn't dress up in glitter. They didn't have all the psychedelic lasers and blah blah blah. They didn't have a keyboard player or any. Well, they had a little bit later of keyboards. But
yeah, Andy Bown in a band with Peter Frampton.
Yeah, Andy Bown. Yeah, that's right. The keyboard player. He's still with Quo today. Yeah, he played that piano and rocking all over the world. But when you toured with him, was that experience you really enjoyed?
It was.
Yeah.
For all kinds of reasons. Some of them I can't mention.
Yeah, well, I'd urge anyone that's interested, check out particularly their 1970s output. And then they went a little bit more poppy in the 80s and lighter. They got away a little bit. They had some pop hits like In the Army Now and Margarita. Lightened their image up a little bit from the boogie, but that 70s material, it's just, you put an album like Blue for You or Hello on Caroline, and songs like Caroline and Down Down, they're just full on turn up the volume.
They were co-written with Bob Young, who was their actual tour manager as well, and he used to play harmonica on stage with them.
He did. There's early 1970 footage of them on the BBC playing all the sort of early blues rock stuff that they did when they changed, and he's playing all the harmonica in it. Bob Young,
Roadhouse Blues. Roadhouse Blues was the one,
Yeah.
Another.
I've got a Bob Young album. We did the Status Quo songs in country, in a country style.
With Mickey Moody.
Yeah, I've got that album. Mickey Moody of Whitesnake. Yeah.
Yep.
That's an interest. Did you ever work with Whitesnake, the original Whitesnake, not when David Coverdale stabbed them all in the back and went off to Hollywood? But
no, I never got to work with those. Although I knew Mickey Moody really well, and back in the day I knew David quite well as well, because we were all from the same area in England. And in actual fact, when I moved from Oxfordshire back to London, I took this apartment that Mickey Moody was living in. He moved out, and I moved in.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking David Coverdale per se, 'cause he seems like a good enough bloke, but he did kind of ditch the British band. He ditched the British band and went Hollywood.
He definitely did. He definitely did. I knew David when he didn't even look like David Coverdale.
He has a great Twitter feed, by the way. He uses Twitter the way I like to see people use it. It's funny. He does a lot of hilarious stuff on it, and he's a lovely, positive guy. And I liked the Coverdale era of Deep Purple quite a lot. I mean, it was a bit funkier, and it's kind of a good lineup, that. But So we're gonna talk about another band you've worked with, although you didn't have quite such a great experience. But it's another one of my favorite bands. I'm sure Darius will know, if he's still watching, will know what I'm talking about. So I gotta show this in PowerPoint. So the mighty Slade,
Yay.
British. Courtney knows who I'm talking about. Slade, glam rock pioneers in Britain. Although the glam bit only went down to their clothing, I think. I don't know about anything else. They're pretty heavy otherwise. 50 million records sold worldwide, 17 top 10 singles in the UK, 6 number ones. Because I Love You. Now, the one song people will know in America is Come On, Feel the Noise, because it was covered by
Mama, We're All Crazy Now, also done by Quiet Riot.
Quiet Riot specialized in covering Slade songs, as do Cheap Trick. They cover a lot of Slade. But they were like, I don't know, in a period in the 70s in Britain, they were the biggest thing ever. But very British. The accents from Wolverhampton, the mannerisms, the chat. They're a very British band, and maybe that's why they didn't catch on. They were just so British. Huge selling band, but the only hit they really ever had in America was in 1984. Run Away was a hit, which we'll play a little bit of later. So Slade, and I don't know, maybe they just didn't look the part. I don't know what it was. Dave Hill, of course, controversial looking figure with the hair.
Very. That's some Barnett, isn't it?
It is. That's what they call a Barnett. Absolutely. But yeah, again, a brilliant hard rocking band. I mean, this is an era where pop hits were hard rock guitar playing on them. Slade have a lot of great songs, actually, or something to the effect was one of the first things Brian ever said to me, says Darius, and it's true. I just adore this band. I was about 10 years old when they had their first hit, and now they started as Skinheads, though. They started as look at that look. I don't know if you ever saw them in that era, Mal, but it was a look
and the braces.
When I worked for them, I'd never seen them live.
Right.
It wasn't something I would have gone out my way to watch.
Because you're not a big fan, are you? Now tell us about that, Mal.
I was never really a fan of them, but I was in America at the time, in Los Angeles, and they were looking for somebody else on their road crew. And they asked me, and I said, yeah, of course, which you did. I was a bit of a prostitute back then. If somebody offers me money, I would do it.
We all would be. How much?
And then after touring with them, and it was strange. I found, because I'd been touring America back then with bands like Uriah Heep, Nazareth, Wishbone Ash, which had some, for me, better music. And then, because I knew Slade from being very pop in England and glam rock thing, with a lot of makeup on, silly clothing, and it wasn't for me really, but the almighty dollar, so if I went on tour with them, and it was hard work. We were driving back to back overnight, one gig to the next, just flogging it. The budget must have been pretty tight because they worked hard,
They were pushing hard. Unlike the Quo, they pushed hard to make it in America, like gig after gig, supporting Alice Cooper, bands like that, Kiss, and just never.
Yeah, I was on that. We supported Kiss a couple of times on that tour I did with them.
Yeah. So they quickly dropped this bother boy, as they called it, Luke, because they found that they were getting the shit beaten out of them at gigs. Not a good choice of. And they went more for this kind of look. Dave Hill's hair was a constant source of wonderment. I just love this cover. But every week, the hair, every week on Top of the Pops. Body. That's right. Yeah, every week on Top of the Pops, Slade would be on with something every week.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
like 4
every
years. Now
week.
this is one of their more restrained stage outfits.
They were still wearing that stuff when I was touring with them in America, and the Americans could identify with that, you know.
I don't know what Dave Hill's wearing.
I would have loved them. Still.
He's like some kind of cross between a Dalek and a nun. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I just don't know what he's wearing. What is he wearing? I mean, it's make your mind up.
I think Lady Gaga got some style from him.
Lady Gaga's got nothing on Dave Hill.
The same outfit with all those little mirrors stuck on it. He had the top hat, you know, and a waistcoat that matched. You know, so maybe
yeah, and
designer came up with those things.
Yeah, so they had I mean, the mid-70s, they were just enormous. They've made a movie, Slade and Flame, which is a great movie. And then, unfortunately, Andy the drummer? Is it Andy?
No,
not Andy.
Don Powell.
Don Powell, yeah. I keep thinking Cozy Powell, different drummer. Don Powell,
excommunicate.
Very different drummer.
Yeah, he had a really bad car accident and brain damage and whatever. And he got back eventually, but it derailed their career. And they just, fads changed, glam went away, things moved into heavy metal. And they had a bit of a resurrection because of that, though. The new wave of British heavy metal came in with Iron Maiden and all that. And Slade stood in for another band at Reading Festival, which is a big rock festival in Britain in 1980. And initially, people were booing them, and then they started playing, and the crowd just went nuts because they weren't metal. It was a metal crowd, but by the end of the gig, they had the crowd eating out the palm of their hands, and they were back.
It obviously had those metal overtones to it, you know, that later on. You know.
Apparently, it was legendary. Yeah, I don't know who they stood in for. It was somebody that couldn't make it, like Thin Lizzy or some, you know, you name it, a recognized hard rock band, and Slade stood in, and everyone was like, "Oh God, you know what we're going to get here." They just killed it, and they started recording more hard rock stuff.
Who would you pick, Thin Lizzy or Slade?
I wouldn't choose between them. You can't choose between your children.
Good answer.
They're both great in their own way. And so they had a bit of a resurgence then in the early 80s, and including that one American hit, Run, Run Away, which was kind of they were going for a big country-ish kind of sound, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's
do there.
Another not so good look, but I think that's I think they're going for the MC.
With the reference to Don and his accident, he used to like to drink, you know, a vodka and tonic or something, or gin and tonic on stage. We were told not to give him any, you know, so we used to just give him tonic water with lots of ice in it. And he used to still be drunk. I don't know how, you know, because he lost all his sense of taste and smell when he had an accident. He lost all the sense of taste and smell. So he never knew what we gave him, you know. He just thought it was alcohol.
Yeah, well, that was to see you were doing him a favor, I think.
Yeah.
Well, again, Darius mentioned Thin Lizzy being like a band that was only known for one song, like Boys Are Back in Town, but again, massively
Whiskey
popular.
in the Jar.
Diddly potatoes. Yeah, Slade.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, I've seen Thin Lizzy. Funnily enough, you mentioned Thin Lizzy, and we didn't, but I'm going to mention them anyway. I was at this gig, Slade with the Eric Bell Band, who played guitar on Whiskey in the Jar, the original Thin Lizzy guitar player.
Oh my goodness!
And Diamond Head, who were one of my favorite bands at the time. That was a great gig. It was in Wolverhampton.
Am I Evil?
Yes, Am I Evil? Brilliant record. This was in Wolverhampton, which was Slade's hometown in 1980. And it was just a riot. It was brilliant. What a gig! But Eric Bell was one of the acts, and he was good too. But yeah, so they kind of went for a more metal sound in the early 80s and had quite a bit of success until they kind of disbanded in the mid 80s. I think Noddy was tired of screaming all the time, you know. Because I'm not sure this is. I'm not sure I've got my audio settings so you could hear that. Could you hear that?
we could hear
All right,
it.
yeah. So he was tired of that stuff, I think. He went on to be on TV and did a lot of TV stuff. But,
And he does. Merry Christmas, everybody is released on December the 1st. You know, and you hear it all over Christmas on every station.
Yeah. So they had a a huge hit with a song called "Merry Christmas, Everybody." Possibly, in my opinion, the best Christmas rock song ever. And it's like every year, huge hit again.
Yeah. He reckons he makes £250,000 from that alone every year.
Yeah, well, as Noddy said, that's me pension plan.
Yeah, he said it's my pension plan.
Yeah, so we're going to have a couple of tiny clips of Slade. I'm glad Courtney knows them and likes them because that's pretty cool.
That was one of the first bands that we talked about, I think, that we agreed on. Them and the Stranglers.
Yeah. So this is one of the first.
Stranglers as well. I done American tour with the Stranglers.
Say what?
Great band.
Yeah.
I have questions for you later.
Well, ask it now. Ask now. Courtney.
Well, now you put me on the spot. I just want to know all about them.
We'll get next time Mal's on. We'll talk. We're going to do that.
You know what they call him had left by then.
Hugh Cornwell. Yeah.
Yeah, Hugh Cornwell had left.
Oh right, it was that era. Yeah.
Understandable. Yeah.
I saw Hugh Cornwell on a solo tour. I saw him live on a solo tour. He only did one Stranglers song, which was it No Mercy? No Mercy.
No More Heroes was a big.
He didn't do No More Heroes. He just did. He didn't do any of that stuff, which I love. I love that era, of course. But
I do too.
So the Stranglers sound like Darius. I think maybe you're more into this sort of choking the chicken, Darius.
The what?
Darius would like them. He'd like the Stranglers.
Mal knows what I'm talking about.
Phrasing.
This is what I love about this show and being on with Brian shows, and the Rowdies and everything is I always pick up somebody new to deep dive into.
Yeah,
check out the Stranglers.
I was surprised when when I toured with them. I wasn't really a fan of theirs. I knew of them, of course, but I was really surprised how many good songs they'd had out. I knew just about every song they played.
Well, apart from the earlier new wave related stuff like No More Heroes, and I've got a big collection of their singles, 5 Minutes and stuff like that. Peaches. They went on to do some huge pop hits like Golden Brown.
Gordon Brown.
Or Gordon Brown, as we used to call it in the UK. Gordon Brown. UK Prime Minister. But Golden Brown and stuff like that. They were very big pop hits.
Yeah, they were.
The Stranglers to me were a progressive rock band hiding in the guise of a new wave band.
Yeah.
Controversial there, I know. But
yeah, you were a great pop band. They're great songs. Great songs.
Oh, yeah. It's Always the Sun and stuff like that. Just beautiful songs. Yeah.
There you go. You just keep naming them.
They did a great cover of 96 Tears. Brilliant cover of that.
Yeah.
Their Walk On By. The Walk On By is just killer. Their cover of that.
Yeah.
The extended instrumental break in the middle. The keyboard player.
Yeah.
Dave.
He used to go home and dress up as a Viking, and had pet rats.
No, that we didn't know.
He lived in this gothic place, and he dressed up as a Viking and had kept pet rats.
Was it Dave Greenfield or Green?
Yeah.
I can never remember the names. Names are not my strong point.
He died. He passed recently.
No. Gordon Bennett. No. Yeah, but they're great. Another band. We'll do a whole show on the Stranglers soon. I think I have to do a Stranglers show. Yeah, so just before that, though, I'm going to play a couple of quick clips of Slade just to let everyone know. This was their first big hit. and I'll flip forward just a bit to get to the action. Okay.
Everybody to get the feet on the floor.
It's a real stomper. Now, the bass player, Jim Lee, plays electric violin on this. And it's a beautiful song. Brilliant song.
I love how they spell the titles of their songs.
Yeah, they deliberately put letters backwards, and instead of cause, because it's C-O-Z, cause, you know. But yeah, having the secret weapon of Jim Lee, who was the only good-looking one. Well, Don was good-looking too, but and he could play. Yeah, and he could play the electric fiddle really well as well. So we'll flip forward a bit of that. Oops. Oh, it went right all the way. I want to get to the bit where he's playing the fiddle. Yeah, a really big hit in '72, and it's still a great song. Great song, "Cause I Love You." Let me just close that down. That's what's giving me the echo. So yeah, that was. I'm definitely getting an echo now. Forgive me if I'm talking funny because I'm getting everything fed back to me.
We're getting it too.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's happening. Anything now? Still happening. I'll try and talk over it. So Jim Lee was the bass player, but played the fiddle. And he wasn't a bass player till he joined the band. They actually got him to join the band, and he'd never played bass before. So I can play the fiddle though. And then he picked up the bass to be in the band. And, it's gone now. I don't know what was causing that, but it's gone. So. Everybody okay? Everybody can hear okay?
I can hear fine.
So anyway, I will play one more clip of Slade with your indulgence, which is the one hit they did have in America. Here's a little bit of it. Now, interestingly, they're not Scottish, but to me, they went for a kind of a Scottish feel on this one. But Dave Hill still looking like a strange person. But this got to number 13 or something in America, which was a belated recognition for them. Why they went for a Scottish thing, I don't know.
It looks like it should be a Monty Python music video.
It does. That man's busy tossing his caber. Right, so Slade, I love him, but I appreciate that not everybody does. So another band, though, that I know that Courtney's going to love me now. Not that she doesn't love me anyway, but another band that was enormous in the UK, never ever made it in hang on, I gotta get this open. Never made it in America, although I've got a great reputation, was the Jam.
I didn't know you were going to talk about the Jam.
Oh yeah, because another one of my
apparently it's her
favorite
jam.
bands, so it's her
my
jam. So the
yeah.
Jam. So
I
like,
had that on vinyl.
yeah, so the late 1970s new wave punk whatever in the UK. Now the Jam were one of those bands that kind of hit in that way, but they were more at the point at that time they were more of a mod revival band. They went for that kind of mod.
They were
Sorry, I had to pick
poppy
something.
too. Like they're melodic, I should say. Like
Yeah, started out as a sort of kind of a punky new wave mod revival band, did Coup covers and stuff like that, and then moved into more almost progressive stuff. I mean, sound effects and albums like that are full of fantastic different styles of song and great songwriting, with Paul Weller, the singer and songwriter, in the middle. Fantastic songwriter.
and I always relate them a lot with the Buzzcocks. Like they're kind of similar with like the melodic,
yeah,
and
I think
kind of.
I'd say the one difference I would say is the Jam went further with their musical journey than the Buzzcock, because Paul Weller soon moved on to doing some real, like That's Entertainment. The song That's Entertainment, brilliant acoustic song. But they had a really sharp image, whereas a lot of the punk bands were all, spitting and safety pins and whatever. Mal, there is a link between the Jam and Status Quo.
Is this to do with the AC-30 you borrowed?
Yeah, so Paul Weller's dad is one of Francis Rossi's best friends.
Yeah.
Of Francis Rossi of Status Quo. So the early days of the Jam, they basically borrowed from Status Quo a ton of gear. Like when Status Quo,
they never returned it. They never returned it.
They never give it back. But they had because the Quo had tons of stuff of their own, so they basically loaned the Jam. Not only that, they loaned them a van and everything, so they could tour. Yeah. And they used to see each other going up and down the motorway and wave at each other, the two bands. An unlikely friendship, but there you go. They were very close to so yeah. I would say
I think Weller still tells that story about how they got that.
Yeah, they owe Status Quo a bit of a debt. So the Jam, so D-Bird Martin, what about their rival band, the Jelly? Pump up the Jam, yeah. But it's, again, this band were enormously successful in Britain. A run of top 5 albums, 3 number-1 hit singles, from about, I guess, 77 through to 84-ish was their period, and then Paul Weller left and split the band up and went on to do stuff like Style Council and then his own solo stuff.
I love the song In the City.
Oh, In the City's a great song, yeah. But they just they were a band that not only made great albums, they had great singles. There was always a run of great singles. Not something you get now, really. Like, what is a single now,
They don't exist. Really.
No. So Down in the Tube Station at Midnight, the Eaton Rifles, Going Underground, this band was massive in the UK. I don't think, other than one track, Town Called Malice, was like a top 30 hit in America. That's the only one they had. And that was a later single. So, I don't know. I mean, Mal, did you encounter these guys specifically? You worked with the Stranglers. I guess it's the same era.
I never worked for them. I didn't even see them play live. But there was a pub, a particular bar in Fulham, in London, where all these guys used to hang out. You could get Robert Plant, the Jam, anybody. Mitch Mitchell lived across the street, and everybody used to hang out. It's a very musical pub.
And they were from that area, weren't they? They're like the Jam.
They appeared on Top of the Pops doing Eaton Rifles. And there was a police station a block away, and if you can picture this, they had these 3 British guards with the Busby head, helmets and the red jackets on, marching behind them on Top of the Pops on this TV show. Well, there were 3 of the cops from the station a block away who also frequented this pub. So it was quite a mix in there of rock stars, gangsters, There was gangsters went in there and policemen. It was a heady play.
Even unsavory people like roadies might go in there.
Even roadies lived there. Roadies lived there. Man. you could, they quite happily let you just go to sleep on the floor or wherever you were laid. They would cover you up, leave you there. Wow. Just get up and leave by the side entrance the next morning.
Yeah, but hugely powerful trio. Very experimental. Paul Weller's a huge fan of the Who, the Small Faces, bands like that, and brought a lot of that in. I mean, did you ever see them live, Courtney?
No, they're one of them that I did not get to see.
It is one of the bands that I don't know how, but I never saw them live back in the day. Now,
well, I wouldn't have seen them back in the day, but a lot of these bands replayed like Holidays in the Sun punk festivals in the late 90s, mid 90s that I used to fly over to England to
well,
go
there's a version of the band called From the Jam still going with the drummer Rick Buckler and Bruce Foxton, the bass player. Paul Weller has nothing to do with them other than one short reunion he had for a charity thing.
Yeah.
He's very standoffish of the other two. Real shame, because I think they were a band that could have ruled the world.
Oh yeah.
And I never saw them at the time either. They were contemporaries of bands like The Police and Squeeze, who did become big in America, but the Jam just never crossed over again. Were they too British? I don't know.
They were really big with the punk scene. I mean, people that are into like that early UK punk, even though they don't fit that mold of like the Sex Pistols and some of those other bands, they're huge with the fans.
Yeah, and I think the thing is they moved beyond that scene pretty swiftly because of the sheer songwriting talent and musical talent of the band. Into, I mean, they could conquer a lot of different styles and were a lot sharper and more progressive than some of the best always rises to the top, and these were one of the best in terms of musicianship. They were not, well, I don't know how to play more than two chords. These guys were great musicians.
I was just gonna add with the music head type people, like the Clash could play. You know what I mean? Like bands like that are well appreciated.
So just to give everybody an idea, I'll play a little video clip. So just give me a second while I cue that up. Let's have a little bit of their Beatles pastiche, which I absolutely loved as a single, song called Start.
Well, this one is called Start.
Starts with a drink of beer.
That's bass line.
Yeah, thanks, man.
For you to know my name, no, I to know yours. If we communicate for 2 minutes, I'll make my beer. I'm a strong one in this life. Feels as best, but as me. And what you give is what you get.
But yeah, their albums became populated with clever, beautifully played stuff. There's a lot of harmonies. You don't get so much of that live. Vocally brilliant. Eclectic, I think is the word I would use. And this was a kind of a pastiche of Taxman from the Beatles, and they had the sharp glasses, the Beatles glasses, and that look, the 65 Beatles look, showing the range, absolutely brilliant record. They're just, but big hit in Britain, nothing in the States.
Such a good song.
I will have to remove it though because we're getting the copyright stuff. It's a shame.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's.
Yeah. Anyway, brilliant band. Maybe if they'd gone another few years, they might have made it. I mean, I'm sure they played lots of times in America.
I'm gonna have to go on like a listening spree of them after this now.
Well, I do that from time to time. I mean, the album I was showing earlier, Sound Effects, I think is my favorite album. It is just packed full of brilliant songs, and they had all these great hit singles, but the album tracks are just kill it. Like Boy About Town. If you, Courtney, listen to a song called Boy About Town by The Jam. Beautiful, beautiful song. Just so catchy. But yeah, never made it. Maybe just to London. I don't know. They were very London. In it. I mean, did you find, Mal, when you went to London for the first time, that there was people said, "Oh, mate, where you from? What's that stupid accent you got?" Like, you know what I mean?
Still do. They still do.
Yeah. So if it's bad like that in Britain, imagine what it was like in America.
Oh, no. When we came to America, they loved you. I love your accent. It was the key to the door.
That's right. I'm in more ways than one. Which door
I
are we
didn't say
talking?
which door.
Yeah, Darius is giving us he's giving us some technical information. UK garage is indeed club music, whereas garage rock is a different thing. That's just garage bands playing in the UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would urge people to check out The Jam. Absolutely brilliant band. There was a few others though that were, and you know, we're probably getting near the end of the show, but bands that were huge in Britain. There was this whole Britpop thing in the 90s, and you had a band like Oasis.
Oh, the Gallagher brothers.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, John, Courtney, and Martin. And Mexico might be different for Martin. I don't know. These guys never really made it in America, did they?
Oh, they were
They did.
huge here.
They did.
yeah.
They did in
only
the
had
90s.
one hit.
They had
That
more
whole-
than that. They had the Wonderwall, which everybody knows,
Yeah,
and then
Champagne
they had
Supernova.
Yeah.
All right. So
They had
They
about
also-
maybe five hits, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
They got a
something
lot
like
of
that.
notoriety
They're-
because they fought a lot.
Oh yeah,
brothers
yeah,
used to
that was
fight.
their major downfall.
They were fighting on an American tour, and probably the vibes of that probably killed them over there.
Well, I believe that's true. That the one big US tour they did, Liam would storm off, they'd fight, they'd throw
Yeah.
things at the crowd.
Yeah.
I don't know if American audiences are that keen on that.
No.
No.
Probably, you know, the aggression between the two brothers probably came across live. Really didn't like each other. They still, even just last week, I heard one of them on the radio slagging the other one off. Still.
Oh, they're still hate each
Oh,
other.
they hate each other. Yeah.
And my buddy, a buddy of mine that lives in Texas, has tickets to see Noel Gallagher with Garbage, and they're playing like
Yeah.
big amphitheaters, right? And
he-
I think they paid $1,200 for tickets.
Yeah.
Now that's what
The
you call a
iPhone
totally
is-
95 lineup.
That was 90s lineup. So, Mal, tell me what street that is. You'll have been in that street many, many, many times. I've been in it. It's Wardour Street. Wardour Street. And
Are you sure that's Wardour Street?
I thought it was Wardour Street. It's
Yeah,
in London.
no,
It's in
that's
Soho. It's in
I
Soho.
lived in Wardour Street, you know, virtually at the Marquee, and our offices for Status Quo were across the street.
Right. So it's not Wardour Street. It's just in Soho.
The Small Faces and Rod Stewart's office were above the Marquee.
Right. Well, there's
I thought
another
that
band
was
I
the street
was going to mention.
where Vivian Westwood's shop was on, but I guess
Yeah.
not. It looked like it. They all look
No,
like it.
It's certainly Soho, so it isn't Wardour Street, but it's in Soho somewhere.
No, I don't think it's Wardour Street.
Right.
The building taller in Wardour Street anyway, and that tall building not there. But it's around that area. It's definitely around that area.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually always thought that they were bigger in Britain than in America, but it turns out everyone knows them. So I got that one wrong. And Blur did have Song 2 was a big hit in America.
I love Blur.
Blur.
Such a good band.
There was that whole resurgence in the 90s of this thing they called Britpop. My favorite band from that era is Supergrass, but
We good too.
Supergrass, they had that huge hit with All Right, but they did a lot of other stuff that never made. They had like they're seen as one-hit wonders in America, but yeah. So Yes, Oasis. I got that one wrong, but another one we haven't got. We're running out of time, unfortunately. But I do want to talk about one more band quickly. Madness.
Yay!
Yay! I like
Baggy
Madness.
trousers.
Baggy trousers. So
I listened to that album nonstop in ninth grade as an exchange student in France. That's all I have to say.
So, to the best of my knowledge, and Courtney, you know them well, they were never that big in America, but again, beloved in the UK to this day.
They did get big with One Step Beyond was a pretty
Yeah.
big hit.
I
But
think
at
our house was an
Yeah.
MTV thing. Yeah, the MTV.
Yeah, I
did.
loved Our House.
But they had, I don't know, 20 top 10 hits in Britain, still to this day play live and are beloved.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of the other ska bands like the Specials, who were quite political, Madness were much more just fun. They're a fun band.
They were fun.
A lot of fun. Yeah. I love them. I love them to death. My favorite song of theirs is one called Michael Caine. My name is Michael Caine. And it's funny because Michael Caine's on it saying that line, but it's not even sung by Chaz, the main lead singer. It's one of the other guys sings it. It's not even. But they're, as I say, that people love them in Britain. Never really, other than the MTV stuff, never really caught on in America.
Very much an institution in England,
Yeah.
Madness.
I do like this particular stage set that they're on, though, with the bananas. I'm not quite sure what they're trying to say, but
I can tell you this: in the '80s, if I wasn't watching something else like a movie or another show, MTV was on.
yeah, and MTV was these guys made a lot of great videos. But yeah, great band. Check them out, everybody. I just wanted to shout out a few people like in the chat: Lady of the Storm, Andrew Werdna, Dragon Ruse, Joe Fox, that have all joined as we've gone on through the show. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks to everyone that was been in the chat the whole time. How much time have we got, Martin?
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so Madness. In that case, I have time for a little clip. Just a tiny little one though, because the copyright gods will be hating us. So tiny bit. Still going to this day and doing great gigs. So Our House, which was probably their biggest hit in the US, but they had dozens of hits in Britain.
I'd stop it. You're going to get struck.
Yeah, it's
That is
such a
so
shame.
recognizable.
Such a shame. I try to pick the live ones so they're not as easily picked up, but anyway. We didn't get the chance to cover a couple of acts that we'll probably talk about another time. The Small Faces were one that were never huge in America, but very influential in Britain. There were Americans that came to Britain.
A
such
certain
as-
female bassist.
Yes, well, Susie
named
Quattro,
Susie Quattro, yeah.
who is known for her time on Happy Days as an actress, but great kick-ass. My favorite female bass player next to you, Courtney. Second only
well,
to
thank you.
But Susie Quattro became this big star in Britain, but she's American.
And she started out, I want to say her dad had like a jazz band or something.
Now, I don't know what the attraction was with her. I really don't get it.
I love her.
Yeah, leather-clad female bass player. What's the like?
I didn't take any influence from her in my 20s.
She was a feisty little thing, you know. She had a lot of kick-ass about her, you know.
Yeah. And you probably couldn't hear that, but never mind. I just was trying to avoid the copyright stuff. Yeah, so she had some big hits, became a big star, still beloved in Britain today, although the hits dried up in the 70s, late in the 70s. But American that had to go to Britain to make it, Walker Brothers, Jimi Hendrix had to go to Britain to make it. So it works. It's funny how that worked. I guess there's Brits have gone to America and made it big there that didn't really do it. Britain, Bush, the band Bush, or I can't say Bush properly because I'm Scottish. From Shepherd's Bush. From Shepherd's Bush.
Hold my beer.
Like Little Things and stuff. Like,
I don't know. Is that what they're? Hang on.
I think he's talking about Gavin Rossdale.
Gavin Rossdale. They are
twice.
A British band that have never been that popular in Britain.
In Britain. I was going to say they're huge.
They were huge.
Yeah.
But in Britain,
I saw them in '95, and then I saw them a couple of years ago.
They barely caught on in Britain. Like they've always bemoaned that they couldn't get an audience in their home country.
I was never a huge fan. But,
no, I'm not a big fan
I see
either.
the appeal, but I guess to Gavin Rossdale was the appeal.
Yeah.
to
There's a couple of other bands I had going to touch upon, like the Smiths and the Stone Roses, but we've run out of time. We'll save that for another show. So
and I know both those bands, so
indeed.
I'm not.
Yeah, the Smiths were influential in America, but never that big commercially. But same with the Stone Roses. So I am old, and I was getting into the '90s stuff, and we didn't even have time to do it. The '90s and 2000s.
No, we only have 1 minute, so we have to wrap up.
Thanks everybody in YouTube out there in the chat in YouTube. Thank you for those listening and watching KGRE Digital Broadcasting and Facebook and Rumble. Thank you to my wonderful panel and to my special guest Mal. I guess we're out of time, but go subscribe to the Rock and Roll Rowdies, to Keto Simple, to Daswolfen, to Courtney. I can't point in that direction. Go subscribe to all those wonderful people. You can subscribe to That 70s Rock Fan channel too if you want. Up to 1,014 subscribers. We'll be doing more Rowdies soon, I hope, Mal. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah. We're getting ready to do some live performances.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear how that goes. I hope you guys
we're booking shows as we speak.
That's great. We'll be talking about that soon on a show, I hope.
Yeah, maybe we can do a podcast, of a live show.
Indeed. Well, I'll be talking to Will. Sorry, Dustin, go ahead.
Oh, it was me. I was going to say, Mal, I wish you nothing but success. I think the Rock and Roll Rowdies is something that the world needs.
Yeah, I'll be talking to you soon, Mal and Wilco as well, and we'll see what.
Thank God. It's a pleasure with you guys. Your knowledge is far greater than mine.
Nonsense. You were there. I was just watching in the crowd.
You keep reminding me, Brian. You keep reminding me.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, mate. Yeah, I was watching in the crowd, but you were there. I was just that little bit younger, not short. Anyway, Martin, are we good? Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.